Amanda Land, Amanda Land, Amanda Land. Greetings, everybody. Happy Wednesday here at Views from Amanda Land, your news and truths by any joke necessary. Thank you for waking up on the right side of history. That's just how you start every day. That's really how we start every day. I am excited today. We have two guests, Jeff Mabute and Bianca Mabute-Louie. Jeff goes by Tito Comrade on the Instagrams. Bianca is the author of the book Unassimilable, an Asian diasporic manifesto for the 21st century. Okay, diasporic. So looking forward to having both of them on the show. By the way, they're married. By the way, they are married, and it's really just fascinating how people find each other. Like, and so let me just tell you, this is the description of Unassimilable. A scholar and activist's brilliant socio-political examination of Asian Americans who refuse to assimilate and instead build their own belonging on their own terms outside of mainstream American institutions, transforming the ways we understand race, class, and citizenship in America. In this hard-hitting and deeply personal book, a combination of manifesto and memoir, scholar, sociologist, and activist Bianca Mabute-Louie transforms this ways we understand race, class, American respectability, and the concept of assimilation and its impact on Asian American communities from the 19th century to present day. So, Unassimilable offers a radical vision of Asian American political identity informed by a refusal of whiteness, okay, and collective care for each other. It is a forthright declaration against assimilation and in service of cross-racial, anti-imperialist. You know what? Hold on. Let me hit that with what it deserves. Cross-racial, anti-imperialist solidarity and revolutionary politics. Scholarly. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. Scholarly, yet accessible, informative, and informed. This book is a major addition to ethnic studies and American studies. Yeah. So we got that going on today. So let's give an applause for that. Yeah. Okay, so I just need to get something off my chest real quick. If you wasn't talking about Gaza during Biden's administration, then you haven't really been talking about Gaza. Okay? And that's all I'm going to say about that. We are going to talk about today really understanding the importance of coalition building outside of performative cultural stance. And that's why this is a great episode to have Bianca on, because there is often this idea that in order to protect your community and culture, you have to silo from other communities and cultures altogether. And I am witnessing that in real time, which is making me honestly feel siloed from my own community. I have to be honest, as I see a number of, maybe I'll just save this for the PSA. I'll save this for the PSA. You know what we need to do right now? We need to do our church announcements. Remember, y'all, this is Views from Amanda Land. Wake up on the right side of history with us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern. Also, please remember that we are needing of subscribers. My subscriber count has dropped substantially. Well, that's partially because it'd be the same group of y'all showing up here every day. And I think that's actually beautiful and fabulous that y'all be showing up here every day. I think it's really dope to have a community that is just like, yeah, this is our community. This is where we be at. And then you come here and you be here. I think so many of us are looking for community. And I got to tell you, I would rather have a community of 500 folks that get it than 5,000 folks that don't. And I know that as somebody who has experienced this in real time. So thank y'all to everybody who is here joining us Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, who replays the episode because the replay crew be bout it, and international. Also, shout out to all my folks who be dropping seals in the chat when they appreciate things that I'm saying. Also want to remind you, if you want to support even further and be a part of a whole other deeper level of community, make sure you join us at the Seal Squad. I swear for Lord, I just need to finish this book. But we've been having a great time with the Seal Squad, and we're going to continue to do so. Looking forward to having another Passage Posse next month, as well as another Color and Vibe. Remember, if you're in this space and you want to show love, you can drop a super in the chat, okay? You can drop a super in the chat. So really looking forward to our guest today, and also talking about the Mexican Underground Railroad, which I don't know if a lot of people know about. It's one of those things where I feel like I knew it existed because, like, why wouldn't it, right? But I didn't necessarily know that it existed in like a formal way. I kind of just in my mind was like, yeah, of course people might take that route. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course people might take that route. But the truth is, like, it's deeper than that. And folks was 1000% involved in this in a whole other way. And so we're going to talk about that because it's important to a larger conversation around coalition building. Okay? So we're going to get into that. Now, I have to be honest, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember our song that we, came up with. I'm saying we, but I'm trying to remember our song that we came up with yesterday for our roll call song. So I'm going to see if it comes like naturally when I play the music. Oh, it is. It's right there. All right, let's get it going, y'all. Hey. Amanda Landers here to learn. Come in the comments, tell me where you from. All right, there it is. Y'all better know it. Y'all better know it. Amanda Landers here to learn. Drop in the comments, tell me where you from. We got Washington, D.C. We got Dallas, Fort Worth. We got Detroit. We got West Hollywood, California. We got Atlanta. We got North Carolina, north of the Gulf of Mexico. Tejas, hey Isabel. We got Pantara in Denver. We got Nashville, Nasra in BK. Y'all, the chat is moving so fast I can't keep up. We got Lena in Merlin. We got Renato is in Brazil. We got Patrice in Shaolin. Amanda Landers here to learn. Drop in the comments, tell me where you from. We got the Bay. We got Long Beach. So we got North and South Cal. We got Memphis, Maine. We got Connecticut, Independence, Oregon. We got Rio de Janeiro. I knew it was Brazil. We got Kansas City. Megan is joining, working from Southern Ontario. Chi-Town, New York, Massachusetts, Clinton Hill, Brooklyn. Hey, Amanda Landers here to learn. Jump in the chat and tell me where you from. We got Manelli joining us from South Africa. We got another Memphis man in the building. Maryland, Chi-Town, South Carolina. Zoo is driving on the 5 freeway in Los Angeles. We got Gila, New Mexico, Pasadena, California, Las Vegas, Atlanta, Mackinac, tip of the mint in the house. We love it. And Beantown. Amanda Landers here to learn. Jump in the chat and tell me where you from. We're international with it. We got Paris. And we got someone, and we don't know where Alan is in France, but he's in France, okay? Seattle, you already know. And again, with the international, we got Reese in London. We got Georgina in London. We got Crunch Munch in Lagos. We got Miss Shadow and I in Istanbul, Turkey. Y'all. I love it. I love it so much. We even got Manchester. We got Manchester. I love it. I love it. The beat is sending you. Oh my gosh. Yeah, okay, the song makes a difference because y'all have never said, I haven't had this many people say where they're from in ever. Okay, we got Stockholm, Sweden here. We got Cincinnati. Cincinnati. And you know what? We're going to end it with Hamid saying we are worldwide to the galaxy. Amanda Landers here to learn. Thank you for dropping in the chat to tell me where you from. Not Morel saying we need to dance. We need to dance. Oh my gosh. Y'all make my day every day. Y'all make my day every freaking day. Okay, so I did not get a chance to put together the word of the day graphic, but I do have the word of the day, and it is decorticate. Decorticate. All right? The word is decorticate. I'm going to spell it right here. Decorticate. And it is a verb, and it means to remove bark, husk, or outer covering from. Now, words like this, I feel like, can be useful outside of the literal use of their term, right? Like decorticate may be like literally about removing the bark or husk or outer covering from, but I feel like that last part, or outer covering from, is useful. Like I would say, what we're seeing now with, okay, like here's a way that I could use it. I would say, those who spoke truth and facts about the occupation of Palestine post October 7th were able to decorticate the lies that Zionists had used to cover it up. You see what I mean? You see what I mean? Removing the outer covering from. Decorticate. Decorticate. It's a verb. To remove the bark, husk, or outer covering from. So when we're looking at definitions, they will oftentimes, be like literal in the beginning, but the natural way of the English language is that we change or we expand meanings, we personify things, and we verbalize things, so I feel like this is that, this word is that. So decorticate. Decorticate. Anyone want to use this in a sentence? Okay, Wendigard says, Amanda decorticates the U.S. government daily. I try my best. Lene said, I had to decorticate my imposter syndrome in order to excel in my career. And we love that for you. Christiana Dabney says, hurry up and decorticate the coconut lady. Hurry up and decorticate that coconut lady. We got to vacate the end. Hilarious. Accurate. Our country needs to decorticate its racial ideologies. Decorticate, decorticate, and it means to remove the outer layer from, dehusk, debark. Fatima says, in the current times, many feel that society is being decorticated of its deeper values, leaving behind a hollow shell. Ooh, I'm actually going to add a... because that's basically what that feels like. And Reese is going to hit us with, as a global world, we must decorticate the invisible boundaries that divide us. I'm actually going to end on that because that's really where I'm going with today's show. I'm also going to be multitasking today. So if you see me looking down, it's because I have to send out orders for Amanda Land Exports. And so I need to use all of my time. Okay, I need to use all of that time because there are only 24 hours in the day. I'm going to put something soft down here so that it doesn't make noise. But let's get into what I'm very excited to discuss today. The Mexican Underground Railroad. And the reason why I'm excited to discuss this is because I'm learning as you're learning, and that's always like my favorite thing. Okay, like everybody learning together. Everybody learning together. Ooh. And Jeff, of course, is already here because he's a timely person and is just waiting peacefully. So we're gonna talk about this quickly but effectively. Okay, the Mexican Underground Railroad. Let's talk about it. So March 3rd through 9th, in South Texas, advocates, historians, and descendants of enslaved people are planning a 60-mile walk. Okay, a 60-mile walk. Do you know how long 60 miles is? I don't think y'all know how long 60 miles is, but it's not for the faint of heart. So I just want to point that out there. They're planning a 60-mile walk to, and it's Texas advocates, historians, and descendants of enslaved people and it's called the Walking Southern Roads to Freedom event. And it is bringing attention to the Underground Railroad of Mexico, or to Mexico. This is a largely forgotten episode of Black and Latino history amid a new surge of research and advocacy around the route. So the walk is going to begin in La Salle del Rey, a Salt Lake in Hidalgo County. It's Texas, and it's going to go through many historic sites believed to be connected to the Underground Railroad to Mexico, and will include a stop in Mexico to commemorate the country's role in the Underground Walk to Freedom. The walk will end in the border town of McAllen, Texas. New research shows that between 4,000 to 10,000 enslaved Black people may have taken the trek south. Alice Baumgartner, author of South to Freedom, Runaway Slaves to Mexico, The Road to Civil War, told Axios. So I got this information from Axios. Now, something I want to point out is the reason I'm bringing this up is because if I'm going to talk about coalition building and I'm going to talk about interconnectivity, we can't just talk about it in the now, because it really is important to understand foundations and why things that you feel like would be so natural now don't exist. So enslaved people would leave farms. They would head south, look at the diagram here, with the help of poor Mexican Americans, German immigrants, and abolitionists who hid them in places from East Texas to isolated regions approaching the Rio Grande River. And we know that the Rio Grande River is still used by Mexicans to come to the United States seeking refuge. So the Rio Grande River itself has a deep meaning for freedom in both cases of the country. Biracial Black and white couples living along the Rio Grande hid escapees until they could take ferries into Mexico, where they would change their names and marry. So there were couples that actually left the South, that met in the South, left the South to live in Mexico so that they could live together freely. There's a researcher named Baumgartner who found cases of enslaved people hiding on ships docked in New Orleans, headed to Mexico, where laws granted enslaved people immediate freedom. And this is because Mexico first abolished slavery in 1829, a process that started as soon as they gained their independence from Spain after their own 11-year battle ended in 1821. Now, colonists in Texas utilized slave labor and refused to stop, even though they were a Mexican territory. So remember, Texas was owned by Mexico. This initially resulted in this person right here, Mexican President Vicente Guerrero, providing Texas with an exception, but citizens of Mexico was not having it, okay? Citizens of Mexico was like, cut it out. Therefore, they wanted slavery abolished in all Mexican states, and eventually the Mexican Congress outlawed it in all states in 1837. Now, remember, we learned yesterday from our guest on Black Around the World that Mexico has states. A lot of people didn't know that. I am one of them. After Texas fought for independence in an effort to keep their slaves, remember, these people aren't fighting for independence because they want to be free. They're fighting for independence to keep their slaves. Remember that. Now, Mexico was not unfamiliar with Black Mexican citizens, as there were already a population of enslaved people brought to the country when Spain invaded, naturally, because Spain was a huge slave trader. In fact, it was Afro-Mexicans that helped lead the Mexican rebellion against the Spanish colonizer. Are we surprised? No. Leading to the independence of the country. Now, some people in the chat are like, well, you know, Mexicans, they don't be liking Black people, etc. We always must remember the effects of white supremacy. We always must remember the effects of white supremacy. There are many Mexicans who are the descendant of the same Spanish people that were colonizing them. There are many Mexicans who are the descendant of the same systems that were colonizing indigenous people and that were enslaving Black people. And so the same way that we are seeing white people in America who are the descendants of those same systems and want to keep them alive, of course, in Mexico, there would be the same thing. Also, there's naturally going to be an effort of vilifying people who are starting efforts to rebel. Hello, we see this in Palestine in real time right now. Given the history between the two groups of people, it's unsurprising then that newly formed Mexican governments would work to abolish slavery and secure a plan for freedom for escaped slaves. So they acknowledge, like, you know what? It is the Afro-Mexicans that did pop this off and get our freedom. So you know what? We need to just shout out all their people and let it be known that their people could come down here and it's all good. Most of the enslaved people that fled to Mexico were from plantations in Texas. But of course, like I mentioned before, there were also some that came from Louisiana to seek refuge in Mexico. There are still towns in Mexico that have large populations of Afro-Mexicans. There was one started by escaped slaves from plantations run by Spanish captors before Mexico gained its independence. Now, Texas, when it was still allowed to have slaves, organized posses to invade Mexico and continue to do this even after they began to be a part of America. The white-led mobs faced resistance when they got to Mexico as violence erupted. And they didn't just face resistance from the slaves who had run away themselves, but from Mexican citizens. And these mobs in Mexico saw armed resistance from Black Seminoles, or Los Macogos, who had resettled in northern Mexico. Because remember, not all Native Americans look the same. There were many Native Americans that present as what you would consider to be Black, the same way that the Aboriginals in Australia is Black, the same way that the motherland has a whole bunch of indigenous people who are Black. Now, I want to frame all of this, though, in the fact that there has been so much effort to create dissension between Mexicans and Black Americans in the United States. Now, the Chicano radical movement and the Black radical movement were happening at the same time. I mean, the Chicano movement was more associated with making sure that there is resources and cultural protections, et cetera. And the Black people were making sure that, we're getting our voting rights, et cetera. But nonetheless, it was still like we need to represent our people. Over the last 50 years, the fields of African American and Chicano studies have boomed with groundbreaking research, redefining the U.S. experience. But rarely do the two fields interact beyond 20th century civil rights tensions, says Ron Wilkins, a recently retired Africana Studies and history professor from California State University, Dominguez Hills. Dissension has been sown, y'all. It has been sown between Chicano and Black American communities over limited resources, police interference, right? Cultural protectivity. All of these things have absolutely been in the way, and they need to get out of the way. And now is the time. As a result, stories about African Americans and Mexican Americans working together have, of course, not been shared. They have worked together to fight racism. We have worked together in the past. And this idea that right now we don't need to work with anybody else is beyond my scope of comprehension, because there's also this idea that, like, in general, everybody is everything. And we'll get to that later in my PSA. Americans working together to fight racism has been going on since the Underground Railroad to Mexico. And Wilkins agree, and I agree with this. If we knew this history, we would come together and strengthen that solidarity. Now, I wanted to show you all this mural. Okay. Identified as the earliest Chicano mural, and this is a piece, these are excerpts from a piece written by Dr. Charlene Villaseñor Black. Identified as the earliest Chicano mural, Antonio Bernal's two-panel Del Rey painting encapsulates the goals of the Chicano or Mexican-American civil rights movement of the 1960s and 1970s. Comprised of two painted plywood boards, it represents paired processions of nearly life-size figures, one from ancient Mesoamerica and the other of 19th and 20th century revolutionaries. So I'm showing y'all right now the one with the 19th and 20th century revolutionaries. This is the left panel. And this left panel, this is the right panel. And this right panel depicts a group of revolutionaries joined together in alliance. And I will name them from the left. Adelita, a woman fighter from the Mexican Revolution. Pancho Villa, leader of the Northern forces in the revolution. Emiliano Zapata, indigenous leader from the South. Joaquin Murrieta, a legendary Robin Hood figure from the Gold Rush era who stole from white settlers, give me that, to give to Mexicans in what is now the U.S. Cesar Y. Chavez, activist, organizer, and founder, along with Dolores Huerta of the United Farm Workers. Reyes Lopez Tijerina, leader of the New Mexico Land Rights Movement, holding a copy of the 1948 Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in his hands. And who is that on the right? Who are those folks that we see over there on the right? Baby, that is Malcolm X in a Black Panther shirt, which is not completely accurate, but we're going to give it to him, and Martin Luther King Jr. She writes, Bernal's Del Rey murals point to the importance of muralism in the Chicano movement. Such murals, often created by untrained community members, appeared in Mexican-American neighborhoods and public spaces, not in elite museums. They become vehicles to portray Chicana and Chicano history, to represent the community, and to make Chicano politics possible. They also provide an alternative history to official U.S. histories that wrote out Black, Indigenous, and people of color, thereby serving to further white supremacy and settler colonialism. Born in Altadena, California, but raised in Mexico in 1937, Bernal worked as an actor, artist, and longtime Spanish teacher at Garfield High School in East LA before passing away in 2023. So, with all of this, what is your takeaway? Because this is our, critical thinking segment. What is your takeaway from this? What is your takeaway from the Mexican and Black connectivity that we have seen throughout the years, but that we haven't actually gotten to witness in real time in the present. And where do you feel like that fits into the conversation that we are having right now around ICE and deportation, around the 14th Amendment being questioned, etc.? We got Dana Cooper, who says they didn't teach this important in all caps history in my elementary school. I'm just learning this at age 52. Craziness. Danny says we were allies. What happened? Well, I spoke to that. Cassandra says, excellent history lesson. Thank you for my seals. Miss Latia says, the takeaway is that the divide amongst us is intentional. Jonathan Gonzalez, solidarity. It's so important and takes work. Okay? And Sonia says, we should be reigniting our unity. Judy Moody, I love that name, Judy Moody. Divide and conquer is working, and it starts with not teaching real history. And then we have Celine84, who says, in the U.S., Black and Mexican communities have often shared struggles related to labor, discrimination, and immigration policies. Yes, all of that is correct. All of that is an important takeaway from this. And it means that, and so sometimes people will say, well, Amanda, so what? Like, you're saying all these things. What's the action? And I need you all to also start learning how to identify the action from information given to you. The action is, if you're able to identify the problem, which is, okay, that there are efforts to keep people separate, that there is efforts to keep history silent in order to do so, and that there are efforts to be dishonest, then be honest, tell the truth about the history, and challenge the things that are being lied about to keep people separate. Ta-da! Smart, funny, and there you have it. All right, so that was our critical thinking segment. Amanda Land. Let's get I'm so mad I forgot to play that at the beginning of the segment. But we are about to get into our 60-second headlines. Our guest has been here waiting patiently, so let's get into it right now. Hold on 1 second. It's going to happen. Amanda Land. 60-second headline. And I run down some news right quick. Run it down, mama. Put us on. Yo, welcome to the stage.
Hello.
Jeff
Mabute-Louie.
Well, you don't have Louie. It's always like, I see Mabute-Louie with Bianca, but I don't see Louie with your name.
Oh, it's probably because I had a Zoom account back when I was in tech sales, and it only had my last name before I got married to Bianca.
And so when you got married to Bianca, y'all combined both names for both of you.
Yep.
Radical till the day is done. Radical till the day is done. Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Trying to exist in the world that we live in today. Not only exist, but resist. So, yeah.
Right. Because that's the other part. I feel like the existing part is one thing, but then what do you find difficult in the work of resistance right now?
Right now, it's just being inundated with so many things that is happening. Executive order each day, on top of the massacres in Palestine each day, on top of mass deportations, police brutality, and just
it's like to put which is by design. Right?
Exactly. It's to create nihilism in people who are resisting. It's like bad things are going to happen, so what can I do anyways?
Please explain to the people what nihilism is.
Yeah, it's just giving into despair, hopelessness, and the idea is I can't change anything, so the bad things are going to keep coming. Why fight? Why do anything? And it's just such a passive and negative way of looking at the world and our own agency and our own power when we are in the collective to fight against what's going on.
I feel like there's also just, this is the spirit breaking effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the spirit breaking effort that they continue to put forth to basically like get people to either in breaking their spirit say, well, I guess if I can't beat them, join them, or whatever. Which is something
Yeah.
that I feel, which is something they keep trying to do with Palestinians, and Palestinians are like, no, it's not going to happen.
Yeah,
And it
and
didn't
during
happen
this,
with Vietnamese either.
yeah, I mean, during this time, it kind of reminds me of like Germany in 1930s, to where basically Hitler and the Nazi Party did the same thing that Trump is doing right now. It's just using the law to oppress specific minority groups, and this ultimately led to so many collaborators with the Nazi Party choosing to turn on their neighbors and basically give them over to the government. It's like the US empire is wanting us to be divided to where we would turn on each other and do the bidding of the empire.
And people are doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because that's also part of the whole like, okay, we're going to take your money so that the only jobs that you will have available are the jobs of harming each other.
Exactly.
So let me see. Where are we going to start? Because okay, we're going to start with this. Okay. Let's go with America gives golden showers of citizenship. Let me just play this clip real quick so that the people can see this nonsense.
It's got to be very, very good. We're going to be selling a gold card. You have a green card. This is a gold card. We're going to be putting a price on that card of about $5 million, and that's going to give you green card privileges plus. It's going to be a route to citizenship. And wealthy people will be coming into our country by buying this card. They'll be wealthy, and they'll be successful, and they'll be spending a lot of money and paying a lot of taxes and employing a lot of people. And we think it's going to be extremely successful. Never been done before or anything like this, but it's something that we're going to be putting out over the next, would you say 2 weeks, Howard? You want to say a couple of words about it?
No, we don't want you to share a couple of words about it. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, citizenship is always conditional based on where you are in the racial and class hierarchy. Like basically, like Trump and the MAGA Republicans are removing all the fluff. Instead of decorating it as DACA, as the perfect immigrant, it's like, hey, if you have money, we will give you citizenship. It's for sale. The American dream is for sale for those who are wealthy.
Basically, someone in the comments just asked, Amanda, are there any like credible news sources left? Well, you're watching one. I'm literally telling you the news. And also, if you go and follow on Instagram our brother right here, Jeff Mabute-Louie, you're getting news with perspective. And I think that's what I think a lot of y'all need to refocus in how you receive news. It's like the issue with the news isn't so much so what you're not getting, which is part of it, because sometimes they just don't report things altogether. But it's also that they're framed in a certain way that is also dishonest. So you're getting a truncated version of what exists, and you're also getting it framed incorrectly. And sometimes, literally, it's not just incorrectly, or it's not just lies by omission. It's just lies, like by admission. And so there's all of that. Now, someone just pointed out something really interesting I thought that you'd appreciate. Someone said, you know who can afford this? Drug cartels. Drug cartels can afford $5 million citizenship. So all of this conjecture about like we're trying to make America safe, how does this basically says that America is only unsafe from poor people.
Exactly. Like it's just the criminalization of the poor. And I think what we're seeing is a concentrated attack on the poor in this country. I saw recently, like they're going to be defunding SNAP and Medicaid. And the idea is just to oppress Black people Freudian slip. oppress poor people to the point where they have nowhere.
Because that's
to
who they
turn
really
to.
want to oppress.
Exactly.
They really want to oppress Black people, but they'll be like, it's poor, it's poor.
Yep. And so the idea is like it's forcing poor people to turn to criminal activities to support themselves, and then criminalizing them for those criminal activities, as well as criminalizing them for homelessness in order to funnel people to the prison labor system, essentially.
Now, the irony of this, though, is that it's actually mostly white people that are on SNAP.
Yep.
But, you know, they're not going to criminalize them in the same way. So we're going to see. When he said, by the way, when he said this hasn't been done before, like it hasn't been done in the US, but it's been done all over the world, like everywhere else. So every day, Jeff, every day with new levels of just, because it's not even just, it's just dumb. It's not even like just evil. It's also dumb, which adds a whole other level to it. Speaking of dumb, I can't stand the lady who is the head of the press, the White House press secretary. I really, she drives me crazy. And now here's this.
Press pool will be determined. Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team.
Y'all. So this is classic fascism. Tell me your thoughts.
I mean, with the previous administration, the press secretaries were also terrible, especially in fielding journalist questions on the genocide in Palestine, and basically continually claiming that it is in self-defense, continually claiming ignorance. But now, you know, with MAGA Republicans, it's like removing all the pretense of decorum and saying, you are only welcome if you are in line with our political views and the questions we want you to ask. And yeah, basically it's removing the mask. Even though the Democrats already removed their mask in the previous term, this is further removal of the mask and further descent into fascism, or further revealing of how fascist America is and has always been.
Can you speak more to that? In what ways has America always been fascist? Because I think people are really thinking, first of all, that a vote was going to save this, that a vote was going to stop this. And you know the saying, you can't break up a happy home? Like, fascism didn't just happen because of a vote that, by the way, was rigged anyway. There was a setup, in my opinion, because it was already implemented within the threads and the fibers of the country. Yeah.
I mean, from the very Declaration of Independence, citizenship was only granted to white land-owning people. Mm-hmm. And that has never been
land-owning white men, not people.
White men. Yeah, you're right, white men. So that has never really been reckoned with. And then, you know, like the Monroe Doctrine is, we're getting a 2.0 version now, and imperialism of America all the way to World War II and post-World War II, where they claim credit for the victory, when in fact it was Soviet Russia and China that lost the most people in fighting fascist Germany and fascist Japan. America then brings in literal Nazis to the head of NATO and to the head of NASA, and to the head of like government institutions in the United States to shape our policy and to shape our, you know, technology and our military moving forward.
George Bush's father had a hedge fund or something like that that funded those Nazis coming to work at NASA.
Yep.
You know where I learned that from?
Where?
An Uber driver.
Dude, Uber drivers are some of the most well-versed people. Like they are the ones that are talking to everyone and anyone.
Right.
And honestly, probably the smartest people that are underrated right now.
Yes. Because when you're in a car all day driving around, like you're going to have so much access to information and various perspectives. Can you just remind people, because I had to Google what the Monroe Doctrine is?
Basically, after the US beat the UK or the Great Britain in 1812, they basically declared that the Western Hemisphere, both North America and South America, it is ours. And if any European colonial power comes over to the West, we will fight them and declare war and basically beat y'all like we did the British. And basically, it's claiming sovereignty on the entire American hemisphere.
Okay, is that why when Japan fired on Pearl Harbor, the whole effort to be a part of Nazism had to just go away? Because before that, the United States was not against the Nazis.
Yeah, Gerald Ford was funding the Nazis, and Hitler was influenced by the United States in the way that they treated Black and Indigenous people here. Like, the Holocaust was modeled after America.
I mean, it's moments like this, though, y'all. I'm sure you agree with me, y'all. It's moments like this where you realize how little history you learned or remember, right? And how it all comes together to actually make sense of what's happening right now. And where do you feel like this lack of press is? So we already know that if they don't have the press in there in a real way, like we're going to get a skewed version of like the news, right? So my next question becomes, what do you think these press sources that are not going to be allowed in there, what are they going to do? Or do you think they're just going to fold to be allowed in there?
I mean, there are definitely those that are going to fold. They're going to, I mean, look at how every mainstream news were in lockstep with defending the genocide in Palestine.
But don't you feel like that's a little different in the sense that they can say, well, that was over there, not over here?
Yeah. I mean, there is that difference. And I think there will be people that, or news sources that are going to be capitulating. And there are those that are going to continually invest in, other sources, other avenues of communication. But then what's tough is like, the main, I guess, venues, alternatives are social media, but
and
then
they own that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like they are really clamping down on information that is contradictory, critical of empire, and basically, it's going to come down to old tech is becoming new tech. Like we got to prioritize meeting IRL and organizing IRL, because the digital space is basically technofeudalism.
Okay, explain technofeudalism. Because I'd be like, Jeff, I learned so much from Jeff, y'all. Technofeudalism, run it down, please.
Basically, it is treating the internet as in the same way that feudalism treated land. Basically, everybody was like an indentured servant or working on the land in order to sustain themselves. But basically, the feudal lords, the landowners, had basically impunity to do whatever they want to anyone that is on their land. And that is what the tech bros you saw during Trump's inauguration. Musk, Zuckerberg, Bezos, all of them were right behind him. And basically that is signaling that they are the real people that is running this country. They are the, corporate ruling class. And they are clamping down on the internet and refusing access to anyone that is critical or contradictory of what they are trying to achieve. And you're seeing that on Instagram, on TikTok, the suppression, but also in everywhere. Like they're based. Who knows the levels of suppression that we're going to see moving forward? It's going to get worse before it gets better.
I know. I think about that quite often. Like just even this space that we've created here that eventually is going to have to move because this is Google. Yep. And at some point they're going to be like, nope. Okay, last but not least. So this guy, Zelenskyy, Okay, I know that you're going to break down for us how Zelenskyy is not really a victim,
Mm-hmm.
because, correct me if I'm wrong, basically there was a coup. I'm getting it right?
Yep.
Okay, so there was a coup in Ukraine, and he was put in place of who was there, and America was running Ukraine through him
Exactly.
for the goal of resources.
Yep.
Okay, so tell me more, because basically, y'all, what's going on is that he is set to visit the White House on Friday to sign a minerals deal. So he's about to get got.
Yeah.
He's about to get got. Now, a broken clock can be right twice a day. Is this a situation where Trump is not all the way wrong, or is he still all the way wrong, but we just need to know more facts, and you know the facts? Tell me.
Yeah. I mean, the the narrative is Trump is creating peace is definitely false. There
Okay.
is always a catch to what American politicians are doing. Uh, with trying to broker peace with Russia, he said it himself. Like, the biggest mistake that the Biden administration did was forcing China and Russia to join forces. And he said that I believe that I could separate them. And
So
so,
BRICS.
exactly.
Got it.
So basically, in the MAGA Republican contingent, there is this belief that we should not be fighting against Russia because they are white Christians like us. But instead, our main enemy is China.
You know, honestly, sometimes it really be that basic. It's just racism.
Exactly.
And I just didn't even put that together, but that it's really just that. It's like we as white men should be pooling our money and squatting up. Why would you be with over there with them when we as white men could run the world? Is it really just that?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the back and forth between the Democrats and MAGA Republicans is just a mode of imperialism being argued between the ruling class of America. It's like who to go after first. Who is the main enemy first? Is it Russia and Iran, or is it China? And basically, there are members of the ruling class in the U.S. empire that believe that Russia should be treated as an ally to go against China and Iran, who are not white. Or not an ally, but like another vassal state like the EU and NATO.
But and this is me just always trying to think beyond the perimeters. Are China and Iran also playing this game?
I think China and Iran were forced towards each other because of imperialism. BRICS was created as a different avenue for trade, and so the U.S. empire have weaponized the dollar, have weaponized the IMF, have weaponized the World Bank to and to implement economic imperialism on other countries, making them beholden to the loans or beholden to the trade in U.S. dollars to go along with whatever the U.S. empire wants. Because basically, if the U.S. empire unilaterally sanctions a country, which is illegal because sanctions has to be approved by the UN Security Council, but since the U.S. empire controls the dollar, which is the main currency being used in trade, then they could basically block anyone from that system, whether it be Venezuela, whether it be Cuba, whether it be Iran, whether it be Russia, whether it be China, who have all been sanctioned and are currently sanctioned to different degrees today. And so the creation of BRICS is a creating of a separate trade and financial system to where they don't have to trade in US dollars. They don't have to get loans from the IMF or the World Bank. The idea is to really create that multipolar world where countries have their own agency to trade with who they want, to nationalize whatever resources that they want, instead of having the US empire dictate all of that.
So before you go, when you go to bed at night and you think about, you know, all the things that you know, what ends up being like your last thought about where we are and where we're going?
My thought is that the living in the world that America has shaped is untenable, and we're going to reach a breaking point sooner rather than later. And the main questions is, how are we building communities of care who are our people that we are going to protect and choose to protect us, and who are the communities that we're going to resist with? And those are the things that I'm asking. My wife and I talk about this almost every night. So it's like we see the institutions that are safeguarding our civil liberties breaking down, and it's like we have to build the new world now while ushering the death of the current one.
Building the plane while flying it, which actually is a terrible, considering the current status of
Yes.
of air travel. That is exactly what I be thinking and how I feel. And something that you said that I think all of us need to just wrap our heads around is living in a world that America built. And the reason why I think it's important to wrap your heads around that is because so many people, Jeff, think that this is how it's always been.
Mm-hmm.
So many people think that there's no other because they haven't lived in it. But this has not been how it's always been. And it's not to say that there haven't always been people being oppressed, right? There have always been factions that are doing to others. But this version of it is global, I would say, in a way that, I mean, I guess Alexandria, I guess the Romans were the last, at this level.
I would say the Great Britain was.
Oh my!
Yeah, it was.
You're right.
Great Britain pretty much passed the baton to the U.S. empire, one Anglo country to another.
The whites. Jeff, you're always a pleasure and always such a teacher. And I know your daughter is just
son.
Your son. I know your son is just, I mean, I can't even imagine what the conversations are. Like, I mean, when you're this on it and you have a kid, what are the conversations with the baby?
Talking about Miss Rachel.
I only say
Sesame
this because
Street.
a friend of mine has a child and he was like, my child knows about racism and he is too. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all.
That's true.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you'll come back.
Thank you.
Because
it's always a privilege and an honor to be here. It's a lot of fun, so I'm always open to coming back whenever you want me to come back.
Thank you. Look at the people. They're like, Mr. Jeff, my mind is blown. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's been fun.
Thank you so much. You have a great one. Y'all, we are here. We have more show. But first, shall we? I think we should. Show your love. Yeah, show your love. Hey, y'all, show your love. It's time to collect. Pass the collection plate. I said, hit me in the cash, yeah, baby. Drop us a super, baby. It's Wednesday here at the show. Last week I didn't have my glow, but now as you can see, I've beat my vitamin D deficiency. And so show your love, show your love, show your love. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Shoo-doo-up-up-ba, scoo-doo-pop-boo, scoo-doo-dee, scoo-doo-up-noo-dee-tee-tee. Drop a like, drop a super, subscribe to the tea. Skip it up, dows, woos out doos doo doos, wabble dabba doos doo dabba doo dee doo dabba doo wabbles wa dee la 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 la. There you have it. Someone said thank you. Someone said my top is so pretty. Thank you. I'm very proud of this top. It's a velvet. Basically, if something has animals on it, I'm buying it. That's basically like the rule. But since I am fighting my consumerism, I am no longer just buying things to buy them. So I just admire them. But this has a zebra. We've got birdies. Look at this, parrots, right? And then we've got like this like blue jaguar. It has like a lemur tail. Then there's a bird on the tail. Then we got a toucan flying. And then we got butterflies. Yeah. Pretty proud of it. We're about to bring our next guest on for our Ambassador of the Week segment. And I am super duper excited. This is a first that we've had two people from the same house on the show on the same day. They're not even sitting at the same computer, which I find hilarious. They were like, you go over there and I'm going to be over here. So let's get into our Ambassador of the Week. Amanda Land. It's the Amanda Land Ambassador of the Week. Hey! Here they come, yo. Here they come. Here they come, yo. Here they come. Here they come, yo. Here they come. Bianca, how are you?
Hey, Amanda. It is so good to be here. It's true. We are in the same house, but I'm like, you're over there. I'm over here. But let me get your headphones.
Right, exactly. Pass them over.
Literally.
How are you? It's so nice to meet.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice to meet you.
I got my Unassimilable goodie bag, and I have been enjoying it. So thank you, and shout out to your publisher for sending out the goodie bags.
Yeah.
So we've been talking so much about coalition building and about the necessity to simultaneously like protect our peoples, but without siloing.
Yes.
And those are like key tenets in this book. But just tell me, first off, a little bit about your background for the people and how we get to this particular book.
Yeah, my background is I grew up in an ethnoburb. Oh, there it is. There's the cover.
Hey.
I grew up in an ethnoburb, so a predominantly Asian suburb outside of Los Angeles. I was educated in predominantly white schools, and then I found ethnic studies that basically saved my life and gave me a lens to understand all of this that we're living through. And so my background has mostly been in the classroom. I taught Asian American studies and ethnic studies at the high school and community college and undergrad level. I'm currently finishing my PhD. I'm a reluctant academic. I love to nerd out and read and write, obviously. But again, my calling is really to be in community and to cultivate spaces for radical learning and safety and nurturing for students.
What are ways in which you feel like, what are ways that you bring radicalism into that space for students? Because I think for a lot of us, you know, if you're not in school or you don't have kids in school right now, like we don't really know what the landscape is other than what we see on the news, which is often just like, okay, they're lying about history. As a, you know, as a professor, as a teacher, what is radicalism in that space? Because by the way, also, things that seem completely normal are considered radical now.
Yeah, right. Man, it's a lot. I mean, I ground myself in a lot of Bell Hooks's work on education, that the classroom remains this last site of possibility in these institutions that are, we know, not made for us, but right now very much eroding and falling apart. And the surveillance of academics, right? The repression at in state-funded institutions in my state right now, you can't even say the letters DEI, right? And so then what does it mean?
What state is that?
Texas. Which is a lot, but this isn't the beginning and this isn't the end. And so, in the past, it's very much been about how then in my classroom space do I make sure, especially for students of color who come from racialized, marginalized backgrounds, do I affirm that they're not just consumers of knowledge, but they're knowledge producers. And so it's thinking very thoughtfully about pedagogy and how to empower the student and reconnect them back to their agency, to see the classroom as a site for healing, not just through the things we learn, but through the kind of community and the norms of communication that we set in the classroom. But I will say right now, I'm thinking about it totally different because of this phase of the fall of empire we're in. It's a lot. Like, I'll just give an example of something that happened in the past month, but I've been on book tour. And so a lot of my stops have been with community centers or universities. And I was talking to a faculty member at a public university in California in a very liberal area in a blue state. And then she kind of went offline for a while, which isn't a big deal. And then she came back and she goes, oh my God, sorry. Like, I wasn't able to continue communicating about this because our institution is shutting down 6 departments and laying off 64 faculty members, tenured, right? And I think if you, and if you've been paying attention, right, this, again, isn't the beginning and it's not the end. Humanities, especially ethnic studies, women and gender studies, these centers that I write about in the book are literal lifelines for first-generation students like me, have systematically been defunded already. And this isn't the end, because I think we're going to continue to see this, right, as our country decides to fuel its addiction to war and genocide and bombs. We're going to continue to see the dismantling of public spaces and institutions like higher education. And then again, not to mention the hyper surveillance and even things like public funded grants and access to data set, right? Like the things that make this, albeit problematic, settler institution go round are like, it's all coming apart. And so I've been thinking a lot then about my role. How do we, make sure that we really support the students and faculty who are, and not concede preemptively, that we defend these spaces. And at the same time, like, by the time my kid goes to college, I don't want college to exist in the way that it exists now. Like, we need to
tell me about that.
Right?
What do you feel about the version of college that exists now that you would like to see change?
It's exploitive. It needs to come down. And I feel that as a precarious PhD candidate, where I don't know when funding is coming next year. And so many of peers who have given so much of their labor and their lives to these institutions can't make a living wage, right? And so then what does learning and teaching, what is that going to look like outside of these exploitive, extractive settler institutions? They must come down, and we must reimagine again what learning is going to look like. Education for everybody is the freedom dream I think a lot of us have been trying to manifest together.
It's so disheartening to me when someone on my YouTube yesterday said, Amanda, what are you doing? And I was like, that to me is a reflection of someone who doesn't see education as a valuable key element of our liberation, of our sustaining, of our survival, of our thriving, et cetera, which is a result of, right, a society that doesn't empower or that doesn't prioritize and that doesn't consider education to be something valuable, right? Like it's really, we are in the age of idiocy, and and they need us to be idiots in order to get like their ball across the line, right? So when it comes to education as a concept and as a key element for revolution, I think, I love what you're saying about just like education for all is not going to be just reading books, y'all. Like, it's what books are you reading? That's why they're banning the books. Like, it's where I got a library card yesterday, by the way.
My favorite underfunded public service.
I was like, I'm back in the library.
Yes.
So when you are in the classroom and you're like, all right, I want to do something, how does writing this book come alive?
Yeah, I wrote the book because, part of it is I wanted it to be a resource for educators and students.
I mean, as a creative, because even if it's nonfiction, there's creativity.
Yes.
How did it go from I know these things? Like, where were you? Did it just spark an idea? Was it something that sat with you for years and then finally you were like, it's time?
Yeah. Okay, so I think it actually happened during the pandemic, and not the book, but just the idea of making my voice public
There we
because I
go.
was
There
just,
we
you know,
go.
living my life. I had a private social media account because I was like, my students cannot find me. I need the separation,
Right,
right? But
right,
then the
right.
pandemic happened and I wasn't meeting or seeing my students. And we were adjusting to online learning. And at the time also we were, you know, having this national racial reckoning. There was a spike in anti-Asian hate crimes. And I'm like, I talk about this stuff every day in the classroom. And I was feeling like, you know, my community is just looking for frameworks and historical context to situate this particular moment in the larger picture of what America is. So I actually started making zines, and people who have been writing with me for a while know that I have one right here that I made.
I was
Literally,
like, I want
it's
to see
just,
a zine.
yeah, right. And we need to bring these back because I think Jeff and you were talking about this. The surveillance on these apps is not it, and we need to like put these in the bathroom.
Wait,
And
unfold it for people because I don't think people know what a zine is.
okay, this is one I made about the origin story of my book. And it basically just tells a little story of how I came up with the concept. But I mean, you know, traditionally, these were like tools of anarchist organizers to spread political information. It was a tool of political education made to be accessible to everybody. And a lot of times you'll see a QR code of like, this is to go learn more. This is to go sign up to join this coalition and get involved in this political community. Yes. Should we do a zine tutorial now?
Like, I'm doing a zine tutorial.
Let's
now.
do some arts and crafts right now. I think we all need it. Yes. You can do it yourself. It's literally free. You just need a piece of paper and a writing utensil.
Literally.
And you can mass copy it, you know, whatever workplace you go to, use their free copier. That's what I do. And distribute it into places that people frequent. And you get like a little political education moment. Yes, you've done this before.
So that's your zine, y'all. This is your front page, right? So all we did was we folded it.
Yeah.
Okay. Into threes or sixes, I guess, thirds. And then you have your front page. And then when you open it, now you've got this panel and this panel that can have stuff. And then you open it and this also has stuff. And ideally, even when you open this, it still connects to this.
Yeah,
like, right?
It's awesome.
And
yeah.
And then the back can also have information. And then you'd be like, bam!
More. It never ends.
And
so
that is, but that's like such a really basic way for people to see that, like, oh, you can just like make the, because, you know, and this is why I wanted to get the question answered from that perspective, because so many people feel like I have an idea or I have my thoughts. I want to get them heard. Oh, I don't have a publisher. So forget it.
Yeah, you self-publish. You make your own shit. Do it on Substack, or like literally what I did was I have a whole box of them. They're scattered around all my mess. But like, I mean, I was making them about the importance of the census, about anti-Blackness in Asian American communities, and unpacking the model minority myth and vaccine act. You know, I like just, it was so much in the world. And I just felt compelled to give people little accessible, tangible.
So would you hand them out to people?
So because we were mostly online and at home at the time, I would take photos of them and like post them on my Instagram. But there are ones that I've copied. This one my publisher has helped me mass copy and share. I know, you know, this is just a tool that I've learned from other political organizers, right? Like labor organizers have been doing this for a long time in places where it's maybe not safe to talk about the kind of political goals and coalition you want to build. Well, you can talk about it semi-anonymously through this. And it's a very, I think, strategic.
And it's affordable.
Yes, exactly. So I think, you know, like as we, again, try to navigate and survive everything happening, things like that are like ways I'm exploring how to continue communicating the things that we need to communicate, given the mass surveillance that we're all trying to navigate.
Do you know Mona Shalabi?
No.
I want you to look up Mona Shalabi's work. I'll send you a link, but she basically does that type of work in journalism spaces.
Oh, cool.
So she takes like statistics that are, you know, difficult to necessarily grasp, and she'll like bring it into like doodles.
Oh, cool.
But Yeah, but in like a really digestible, cool way. She's Iraqi, and she despises when people mimic her British accent, but she actually has a really beautiful British accent, so it's like very difficult not to mimic.
I'll have to look her up.
She's fab. She just did my podcast, Small Doses, which you will also be invited to do when we are doing our next batch of interviews.
Oh, thank you.
So you're doing the zines, and the reason I ask these questions again is because process is really important to like verbalize. So many folks get stunted in this capitalist setup because they can't figure out from the beginning where the money gets made, so they can't figure out how to chart a path forward. So you're making the zines, you're in the house.
And I literally, that was it. I'm just making zines in the house, trying to survive, and not much else was going on. And eventually, you know, I mean, I've always kind of seen writing as an outlet. And so I would just self-publish on Medium or like small outlets. This doesn't exist anymore, but there was like a post-evangelical lefty blog called The Salt Collective. And I wrote about, at the time, again, the spike in anti-Asian hate crimes, Andrew Yang was like telling people to go wear red, white, and blue and be American. And I was like, this is all
to avoid
being hate crimes. To avoid being hate crimed. Yeah. If you wear an American flag, you'll be okay, apparently. Right. Which is kind of also the genesis of the book.
Why didn't Black people figure that out?
Should have just thought of that, right?
Guys,
he had the secret. Right. So I just found, you know, where they would publish me. I don't think I even got paid for that, but I was just like, I just need to get this out. And I think it'll be helpful for folks. And also, I'm really pissed off about this. And that was the beginning of me thinking more about this politic of refusal as opposed to assimilation. Right. And that was part of my process, like working this stuff out on outlets that would have me on my own platform, and the ideas and my own political education and unlearning was just rolling at that time.
So tell me about that, about your own political, because you said post-evangelical.
Oh yeah.
You slid that in. And I was like, well, what was the pre?
Oh my gosh. I write about this in the book, but I wasn't raised religious at all, but the Chinese immigrant ethnic church, the youth group ministry, they got me. They are very effective in the outreach and in the making you feel at home. And I did feel at home, right? And so that was kind of the space I belonged to. I was, it wasn't like I was like attracted to the evangelical space. It was more just like they found me, and it was a space where I felt racial belonging. And it was a space where I was receiving a framework on social justice and like Jesus caring for the poor. And I was like, yeah, I'm down with that. But the post part happened because I was working for an evangelical organization, and they decided to draw a line in the sand where they were like, everyone who is queer or trans affirming in their theology and beliefs has to leave. And you are no longer allowed to like everything you teach around like gender and sexuality has to be the traditional biblical, whatever, like a very heterosexist model. And I was going to a very queer women's liberal arts college, and that's where I was working. And I was also, you know, I knew I wasn't straight, but I was like, I don't know what language I have for myself, but I know that this not only doesn't sit right in my head and my beliefs, but it doesn't sit right with my body. And so I went through just this year-long phase of excommunicating myself from them. I did a lot of organizing with queer students and alumni and staff, and we tried to push the organization a certain way and show them, look, like the people who belong and who built this space with you disagree with this. But ultimately, they had a donor, I think, who was like, absolutely, we need to draw this line. Otherwise, I'm withholding my money. That's what the were. But, you know, for me, it's like, thank God I had that queer awakening, because that space was becoming too small for me anyway. And it led me, it really shapes now how I relate to institutions, how I kind of see the urgency of building community on our own terms outside of, again, these like high boundaried institutional lines of what it means to belong and what it means to have membership in a particular space. And I'm just kind of like, no, this is not healthy for me, and for me to thrive and self-actualize in the way I need to. I'm just becoming too big for the space. So it was really painful. It was very traumatic. And I write about it in the book, but I really do feel like the process of writing has given me closure about that time in my life. And yeah, I kind of just think it's what it is.
You're like, I mean, the tumult for, I think, a lot of people in the last 5 years has just been nonstop. If you are a curious intellectual person, because it's very much, once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, wait, there's this to see too? And this, and this, and this. And what I appreciate about your stance with Unassimilable is that seeing more doesn't inspire retreat, right? Like, and that's what I feel like I'm seeing from a lot of people in my own community right now, is this idea of, wow, things have gotten really, really bad. And so we need to not care about anybody else. And I think you can do both.
Yeah.
So tell me about in Unassimilable so I had read the breakdown for people. I read the breakdown for the folks on my show, and I said Unassimilable offers a radical vision of Asian American political identity informed by a refusal of whiteness. And that's when they're like, ooh, where's she at? We want to meet Bianca. And collective care for each other. It is a forthright declaration against assimilation and in service of cross-racial and an anti-imperialist solidarity and revolutionary politics. So because language is such a barrier, even when we're all speaking the same language, there's a couple things that I would love for you to just break down for folks. Let's start with, what is assimilation?
Yeah, I think assimilation for a lot of folks is a survival mechanism and has been the only way to survive. Oh, hi.
But she has like her paw on the desk.
She's like, I want to know what's going on. And after that, give me the mic.
It's just random. I'm like, okay, we're here with Bianca and Jedi.
I'm very allergic to cats, but I appreciate them. And I feel like I relate to the personality of cats. So I'm happy she's here.
Thank you.
But right, like for Asian folk and for a lot of racialized immigrant folks, as well as Native folks, right? Like assimilation is a violent method of reifying white supremacy and the racial hierarchy. And it's a process of stripping people away from their indigenous cultures and languages, right? I think the way I explore it in the book is the assimilation that happens in the binary of the good and bad immigrant. That is nothing new, but we're seeing, especially literally today, right now, in this current administration, that sometimes when there is an explicit attack on immigrants, they're doing the divide and conquer, right? That's a very like understood strategy of the empire. But sometimes we do it ourselves. We say, okay, but we're the good immigrants. We're not like them. And, going back to the anti-Asian hate crimes, when I started writing the book, I was noticing a lot of like, oh, but we belong here. We came here the right way. We have helped build this country. We're the good immigrants, right? Like a lot of the reliance on this good immigrant trope that we've assimilated. And so we don't deserve to be hate crime. But for me, I'm like, why? What if I don't want to belong here? Why would I? It's an argument against assimilation because, again, why the hell would I want to belong here? Right. And this concept of assimilable and unassimilable has been used historically in immigration policy to decide who is eligible for citizenship and who is not. But again, we know that those categories are conditional, that there are groups that are, quote, the good minority who have assimilated. Actually, that belonging is conditional. And when there's a pandemic or when there's geopolitical conflict, they can easily decide to make you the enemy. Absolutely. So again, why would I want to play this game of assimilating and be, kind of being here in the right way when there is no right way to be in a country built on anti-Blackness and genocide? Like, right?
Say it again. Say it again, please.
I think in immigrant discourse, there's a lot of like, oh, I came here the right way, or I'm the good minority, I'm the good American. There is no good or right way to be in a country that is illegal, right? That is built on anti-Blackness and enslavement and genocide. And so I'm really trying to make the argument that instead of trying to prove and labor our way into belonging here as Americans, this is an opportunity to actually indict America altogether and refuse to participate in its shenanigans and refuse to assimilate into its violent agenda.
And, there are people who would say, well, then why would you come here if it's so bad? Why would you come here? And so what do you say to those people who are here?
So there's a reason this is called Asian diasporic and not Asian American. And I interrogate that pretty deeply, because why are we in diaspora? Why did I come here to begin with, right? We're in diaspora not just because of this reductive American dream story of, oh, our ancestors wanted a better life and they dreamed of coming here for opportunity. Maybe they dreamed of staying home, Right. Maybe it is because of the ongoing dynamics of colonialism and coloniality that set the conditions for why people are in diaspora in the first place. And so when people say, well, why did you come here? I ask them to then ask the question, why were they forced to come here? What are the global dynamics, again, of diaspora and migration patterns that were happening that condition the individual choices that people had to make? And again, the answer often points back to coloniality and, again, ongoing dynamics of racial capitalism and oppression, and the ways that the US has destabilized and the West has destabilized a lot of our country so that they have to go elsewhere to find better opportunities. This is recent history as well as, back to the Opium Wars, right? Like my family's from Southern China, and we had multiple waves of migration where my great grandfather came to San Francisco, and then because of the Chinese Exclusion Act, he wasn't able to go home, and so he died of lung cancer in San Francisco, and then by himself, and then nobody else from my family really came until my parents after the Immigration Act in 1965. And right, like there's all these geopolitical and historical contexts that are shaped by Western imperialism that, again, condition our lives in diaspora right now.
When you talk about the book being a radical vision of Asian American political identity, what does that look like in reflection of how you feel within your own community there is a vision of racial identity? Because there's a radical vision of racial identity versus like that comes from the outside, right?
Yeah.
Like this is what Asians are, but like from the inside of your community, where does that reflect?
Yeah, I think there has been a radical current of Asian American identity since the Asian American movement that was anti-war, it was anti-imperialist, it was anti-capitalist, it was very socialist, very grounded in cross-racial solidarity, inspired by the Black Power movement, right? But I also think that because of the model minority myth and neoliberalism and the seduction of adjacency to whiteness and anti-Black, all these things, right? There's also an Asian American identity that is about aligning with whiteness. And then there's also this like neoliberal, quote, progressive image of an aspiration of Asian American identity that is about, right, like gaining representation in Hollywood, representation in Congress seats. And again, I'm not saying that like we all have to have made the choices we have to make to survive, but this is really not an argument for representation and inclusion. It's an argument for refusal and indictment of this thing that people want to be included into. And I get a lot of this from feminist Pacific Islander scholars who make the differentiation between Asian American identity politics and Pacific Islander politics of decolonization, which, right, where the politics of representation, we see the state as the solution. We see that if we can just get more representation in this state, then we'll all be better because these representatives will help uplift all our people. Where
never happens. I've never seen it happen.
Yeah. I mean, maybe people will proclaim to do that, but once we see people kind of go through this very dehumanizing, violent system, they don't end up representing us. They become part of or they become, fixated with surviving that institute, whatever, right?
Yes.
And what I have learned from, I think, a lot of politics of refusal from Black radical traditions, as well as, again, Pacific Islander feminisms, is that the state then is not a site of solution. The state is the problem to begin with. And so when we look at politics of decolonization for Hawaii, for example, or different Pacific Islands, it's not really about trying to gain seats in this imperialist state that is occupying your homeland. It's about actually decolonization and kicking out that empire from your homeland and thinking clearly about what it means to reestablish your relationship with your own sovereignty. And so for me, then, I'm not Pacific Islander. I'm Cantonese. My parents are from Hong Kong. I really had to think about, then, what does this mean for me? How do I situate myself? I feel like, this feels aspirational to me, right? This politic of decolonization and refusal. I don't really aspire to represent my people in these institutions, but I really had to, in the book, explore then the reality that I am both, my family and my ancestry is both victimized by American imperialism, but we are also settlers here, right? And so again, this politic of refusal then is really reckoning with what is my relationship to empire right now in a land that doesn't belong to me, but I'm here because of legacies of coloniality, right? And what does it mean for me then to take a posture of refusal and resistance? And, you're talking about aligning with each other and building coalition. What does it mean then for me to take a posture of solidarity and coalition with other people who also have been victimized and displaced by empire, rather than continuing in this aspirational settler mindset, right?
If we can just be, it's this energy of, can't we all just get along? No, because I don't like y'all,
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'm not going to shut up about the stuff you're doing just to get along with you.
Yeah.
Which is, the vibe. Speaking of vibe, in your home with you two smarties, what are things that you all do that are silly? Because I don't think people understand that the smarties be the silliest. me and Mark Lamont Hill are two of the silliest people you've ever met in your life. So you and Jeff, you're on here, you're very serious, but I know there's silliness.
No,
what's going on?
We need to be silly to get through all of this, and to, there will be pleasure and shenanigans and tomfoolery on the compound as we get through the revolution. Okay, me and my best friend always say, we don't know how to forage, we don't know how to hunt, but we will be the town jesters of the compound as everything collapses around us. What do we do? I mean, honestly, Jeff is actually probably the sillier one. I get really, even this morning, we're getting the kid ready to go to daycare. They're both just singing their asses off. And I'm so overstimulated. I'm why are you both singing so loud at the same time? And then I'm okay, let me calm down. This is a beautiful moment, even though I'm overstimulated.
Center.
Yeah. I don't know, just things like that, trying to be present with our kid. It's really a joy to have a toddler right now, because everything is so new to him, and we get to kind of experience the world through his eyes as opposed to my very jaded, tired eyes.
Fair. Yes.
What else do? We watch K-dramas. I watch a lot of trashy reality TV, and a lot of disassociation right now, to be honest. So I can be present in this moment.
Fair. Fair.
Yeah.
Honestly, I can't watch trashy reality TV because it literally makes me be like, it is because of this programming that people have been deprogrammed to resist.
True. It's so true. I gotta stop. I am part of the problem.
No, it's someone, because I come from that business, you know? So coming from the entertainment business, I'm just you guys keep making this trash. I mean, every other show is either at this point reality TV or something having to do with military or the cops.
Yeah. No, the disassociation plus propaganda at the same time is is so deep. And I'm watching it and I'm just like, let me just like.
Or we could do this, you know? So, no, I feel you. Well, where can people, actually, you did send me this link, so I'm going to pull it up. You are on a book tour. Are you still on the tour?
I'm taking a break and then I'll be on the East Coast in April.
Oh, will you now?
Yeah, I'll be doing an event. It's on my website, but I'll be doing a few events in Boston, and I'm doing an event on April 22nd at Powerhouse Arena in Brooklyn. And we might be adding a few more dates. So if you wanted to do anything together, Amanda, because I know you're on the East Coast, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, we should.
We got to get something going on.
That out.
Yeah.
And I mean, at the very least, I want to, meet you in person. You know, that's the other thing that this internet be making you feel like you met people, and then you're like, no, I haven't met you.
I totally need the IRL embodied experience of Amanda Seales. So I'll be letting you know. Don't worry, I'll let you know.
Please let me know.
And I'm in your area. Yeah.
Now you all, this is a link where you can go and get the book Unassimilable. And this is through Bianca's site. So that's important because I know a lot of people are like, a lot of people feel like the only place you can get books is Amazon. And I'm really trying to dispel this. Like, for the record, authors get the least amount when you buy it from Amazon.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know.
Yeah.
When you buy a book from Amazon, the authors literally get the least. They put everything on sale all the time.
Yeah, they do.
Immediately. And you're just like, I just came out. Like, let me live.
And I pay full price for like one more week. That's how I felt. But yeah, there's a bunch of links there of where you can buy. I recommend Bookshop, and you can support local bookstores. Yes. But it really is available wherever you want to get your books. The library, requested from the library, that is an act of love to me, I feel like. Yeah.
Do you guys have any questions for Mrs. Mabute-Louie? If you do, drop them in the chat before we get out of here. Where do you feel like in writing this book, it has pushed you to your next phase of life?
Oh, I did write a book. I wrote a chapter in the book about and really interrogating disposability politics in our movements and the ways that we sometimes just throw each other away, to put it frankly. Right? Like, disposability politics comes from a lot of scholars and practitioners of disability justice, and the ways that our capitalist society deems certain people as disposable, so we throw them away. We don't give them access. We saw that a lot, for example, in the country's response to Hurricane Katrina victims. But I was investigating how I saw that in social justice spaces and organizing spaces. And this propelled me to the current phase of what I'm thinking through, because it made me think and interrogate kind of the role of spirituality and interconnectedness to combat those kinds of harmful ethics as we're trying to build movements and do good in the world, right? And I explored, this is the penultimate chapter, but I explored a lot of, how to become, in the words of Grace Lee Boggs, to become more human beings. And right now I'm exploring the role of spirituality in that, to tune in to more of our inherent interconnections, so we don't throw each other away at every step of revolution.
It's so casual.
Right.
The way it happens. It's very that. I mean, I've experienced that in real time, where it's just like, you're irrelevant now.
Yeah.
You didn't agree with this thing, or, you don't represent this thing the way that we want it to be represented. So I feel like the disposability has broadened in terms of who is allowed to exist, who's allowed to talk about their existence. Right? Yeah. Because that's the other thing. It's very much this idea of only certain people get to speak.
Yeah.
I mean, we're seeing that in real time with the White House press corps.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rachel Porter asks, Ms. Bianca, what's your favorite history subject or timeline?
Oh. I have to think about this. I'm trained as a sociologist, and sociologists are like sadly ahistorical. They don't think about history. And
Really?
so, yeah, well, at least from my experience, it's very like empirical what's happening now. But I think my favorite, a lot of what has grounded me and I've learned a lot about is the radical movement history of Asian Americans in the 1960s and 70s, the anti-war movement. There, if you wanted to go into a deep dive, there are groups called the Red Guard and Iwar that were inspired by the Black Panther Party to start these communities and political groups that really were about keeping their own folks and young people safe and doing political education about American empire. And in the historical amnesia of being American and the particular ways I've experienced that as an Asian American, that movement history has been really exciting for me to learn.
Nice. Next question.
Oh.
Mrs. Mabute-Louie, what would be the best way to break through the model minority haze that has engulfed a lot of the older Asian community?
This is a great question. I think about this and I get this question a lot. I think in the past, I would try to just come at elders or other, not even necessarily elders, this is also young folks too, but people in my community who kind of believe in this myth of meritocracy. Maybe they believe in a lot of anti-Black narratives that if you don't have access, if you don't get into college, you don't get into this institution, it's because you're lazy or you're not smart enough, right? Like, I'll just approach it with curiosity and be like, oh, where did you hear that? And make themselves explain their thought process. I will say right now, this year has had me all sorts of fucked up, Amanda. Like everything, everything.
It's only February.
Right? It's very disheartening. But I think lately I've been thinking about it differently because I've been doing that approach with my parents for over a decade now. And now they're at the point where they're like afraid to talk to. I think they find me extremely annoying. And like, they're always like, oh, we didn't mean it like that. One example is like we were at a family wedding and I think I had talked to them about BDS and boycotting Starbucks. And they had got something from Starbucks and they're like, oh, we only got water. Like we didn't buy. And I'm like, it's okay, guys. Like, and it's made me reflect like, oh, am I really annoying?
I mean, it's ethically annoying. That's
It
fine.
is ethically annoying. But it just made me think, if people are just afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing, but materially nothing has really changed in their lives or their heart posture has not changed, then like, what are we doing? How do we materially get us all to understand our interconnections? And again, I've been thinking about this more differently lately because I think when climate crises comes, which it already has, and when the collapse of empire comes, which it's already here, like I think about immigrant churches, for example, that often have adopted very violent white supremacist theologies and politics that are very anti-immigrant. And
immigrant churches that are anti-immigrant?
Yeah. So people who I think Asian evangelicals or ex-evangelicals might know this, but there's a lot of Asian immigrant evangelicals, and this is kind of my specialty in my PhD, who sometimes come from Southern Baptist tradition, who have very, again, like homophobic, often anti-immigrant, even white Christian nationalist politics and theologies, especially here in Texas. So I've heard in an immigrant church, pastors talk about immigrating, quote, the right way, even though there are likely undocumented folks in their congregations.
In the congregation.
And so I think about that. And I also think about how these spaces are like really socialist in the ways they care for each other. That I've also seen these churches literally like pay each other's hospital bills, really take care of each other in a radical way that sometimes I don't see in the spaces that supposedly have the same politics as me. And so anyways, I'm thinking this long-winded answer to this question, but all of these binaries and categories I had previously are kind of getting broken down. And I feel less like, oh, I want this group of people in my community to get to this particular place politically. And I'm thinking more about how is care happening. And it's not to dismiss, again, the violent politics and ideologies of our elders that they may have.
Two things can be true.
Exactly. Yeah.
I do think though that there is a certain level of value to like, even if there hasn't been material change, just do the thing that needs to get done. Just
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think some people can materially change, but they can also be expected to not contribute to harm.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
And so, like,
Yeah.
when we say make racists afraid again, it's like there is a really frustrating reality to the fact that this country has not culturally shifted away from
Yeah.
racism in like a committed way. But there is also something to be said for the fact that many of us who came of age during a time where racism
Yeah.
was considered like untoward,
Yeah.
like I grew up in the 90s and in the 80s, and you really didn't see racisting in the
Yeah.
same way that you are right now or before. Like it had
Yeah.
been kind of like tucked away. And I
Yeah.
know that doesn't make it, that's not solution, but I will say that I feel like I had a different childhood experience because of that, which shaped me in a different way, to be able to show up.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have that additional trauma with all of the other just, oh my gosh, why don't I have
Sure.
boobs and everyone else does trauma?
Yeah. Yeah.
Amanda got mosquito bites. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Such real relatable trauma. No, but yeah, I think that's fair. I sometimes think about like, let's bring back shame again.
Yes.
Right?
Bring back shame. Make shame famous again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Shame was popping for a moment, and then it got out of hand, because that's really what happened. It's like I feel like shame turned into cancel culture, which then became like completely unwieldy, and then the pendulum swang the other way, which is shame nothing.
Yeah, but there are some things we need to shame and make, like you said, people afraid of.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just
Yes.
accountability. Yeah.
All right, last question. Last question from Miss Latia. Miss Bianca, how are you intentionally going about the practice of collective gathering since these internet streets are less and less safe?
Yeah, I think trying to be in person with people more. Okay, lately I've had this goal of trying to meet my neighbors more. It's interesting when you have a kid, because you then have this like kids social circle, and there's the playground and stuff, and I'm trying to challenge myself to like ask other parents for their numbers to connect, whatever, because I feel like there's this circle of relationships where you don't know anything about these people, but you cross paths physically with them a lot. And again, when climate crisis comes, I'm like, I'm gonna need to know who my neighbors are. I'm gonna need to know who has a generator, who has solar panels, right? And so I'm trying to like be more intentional in the physical locale that I'm at, but it's really vulnerable. I'm introverted, and Jeff's out here talking to all types of people, and I'm like, stop. But for me to do that, it takes a lot of effort. But and then also when you have a kid, it's like I have nothing in common with this person except for the fact that we have a kid the same age. But I'm also just like seeing that.
Have you seen the movie Night Bitch?
No.
Watch
it. Sounds
it.
familiar. Okay.
With Amy Adams. That
okay.
exact sentence is said in the film.
Oh my God.
I have nothing in common with these people
Yeah.
except for the fact that we have kids that are the same age. But
Yeah.
there ends up being a whole
interesting
trajectory around that I think you might appreciate just as a mom with a toddler.
Okay, I'll need to watch that. But yeah,
Yes.
just more intentional meeting of neighbors and making myself vulnerable in that way a little bit.
I'm going to go to a city council meeting.
Okay.
I want to get involved in the community garden
Yeah.
when winter goes. And I want to start having Amanda Land meetups.
Yeah.
There's people like in various cities, and I want to, it's a time thing, but I want to figure out how to like find whether it's restaurants or like friendly spaces in different cities where like the Amanda Landers can go, and they're in the same time meeting each other. They're also patronizing a space that is a safe space type vibe, So it's going to take some organizing. I need to basically just like designate somebody to be the organizer of that, and then provide what needs to be provided. The way we always do things here with our Amanda Land ambassadors is we give you the stage to leave a final statement to the people, from any point of view, from anything you want to say, whether it's related to the book or related to organizing, related to resistance, related to Miss Rachel, whatever. And so I now give the stage to Ms. Bianca Mabute-Louie.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to keep it short. I'm just going to say, buy my book right here or request it from the library, and stay silly and connected with each other.
Silly and connected with each other. Thank you so much for joining us. Go and get Unassimilable. It is available wherever you get books. An Asian Diasporic Manifesto for the 21st Century. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda. This was so great.
Fabulous. Have a good one. You guys, we did so much learning today. That's why there's only 536 people here. You know, whenever we're doing heavy learning, people are like, she's not talking about pop culture. We gotta go. We have got to go. I will be spending the next 3 days sending out shipments for the latest order of Amanda Land exports. So that's what I'm going to be doing. Just so you know, every time you leave these comments, I have absolutely no idea what this is. So I don't know if this is like a glitch in like the tech or if you're writing this out, but I have no idea what this means. So there's that. Truth be told, production said, I'm goofy, not silly. It's a difference. All right. To each their own. And it's a glitch in the tech. Oh, they're emojis. You know, there's people on this internet that be writing things in like they're very like really like cryptic ways. Like, look, it's cool how I'm writing. And I'm like, I don't know what this says. You're writing in all sentence case. Writing in sentence case drives me absolutely insane, for the record. Okay? Writing in sentence case takes me out. Like, I want to fight people. Stop writing in sentence case, writing an entire paragraph. I also don't like when people are writing with ellipses as periods. Ellipses are ... dots. Yeah, don't do it. Don't. It's a period, not an ellipses. Ellipses means the thought is continuing off into the ether. It's to be continued. Okay. Let's, now that I'm done with that rant, let's get into our final rant. Amanda Land. PSA. I've really been thinking a lot on just the concept of what coalition building means in this moment, but even without using those like very direct terms, I just have been thinking a lot about the continued effort by folks to say, I'm not going to be with those people. I'm not going to be with those people. I'm not going to be with those people. And me being such a literal person, I'm reactionary to it because it makes me uncomfortable to see people saying, I'm going to silo, I'm going to create borders, I'm going to not, and it's not boundaries that are based on real things. So like when I see people say, well, I'm not going to help other people and other communities, you know, that aren't helping us. I'm like, well, were you ever like, in what version of helping them were you doing before that you're not doing now? So I asked myself and I asked them these questions. But the truth, someone just asked me, do I consider myself a liberal or a leftist? And that is a crazy question to ask me if you've been watching this show. So I think that there's something really truthful about the FAFO happening on various levels. So at one point right now, we see people saying, oh, you know, I'm not going to worry about anybody else but my people. And they're making that around Black people, let's just say, right? Because those are my people. The idea of Black people as my people. The thing about it, though, is that I look at Black people these days and I can very clearly identify that there are many Black people who may be my people, but they're not my community. And those are just semantics. At the end of the day, it's like we both are Black, but we not the same type of Black. We don't operate in culture to the same, you know, we don't identify in capitalism the same. We don't literally exist in our Blackness the same. some people would say, well, because you're light skinned, you be OD about your blackness in ways that other black people can't be because they are feeling discrimination in a different way. And that is completely valid. I would also challenge that to say there are many black people who feel discrimination in that same way, who are like, well, I'm going to lean into my blackness, even blackety blackery. And the reason why I say all of this is because the FAFO is going to be multiple layered, because we're in such an early phase of what's happening in the diminishment, in the dissolving, in the destabilizing, and the destruction of things as we know it, that we can't even really genuinely define. I'm not even going to say we. Many people really aren't actually sure who their people are, and they're going to find out. They're going to F around and find out that who they think their people aren't actually their people. And, I feel very fortunate that that happened for me last year so that I could this year not feel so jarred in that. I found out last year and, post October 7th that, who I think are my people aren't really my people. So I need to reimagine who my people are. And I think that what would be really helpful for a lot of people, I'm really overusing the word people right now, is asking yourself, what makes people your people? And if that is grounded in a willingness to ostracize based on generalizations, then I can promise you that you are actually mimicking your own oppressor. You're mimicking your own oppressor. I think it's really, well, liberal is a pejorative, Mario. That's why it's being used as a pejorative. Liberal is not a good thing. Liberal is not what, if you don't realize that liberal is a pejorative, I will assure you it is, which is literally why even back in the 60s, Martin Luther King said the most dangerous people in America aren't racists, it's liberals. So that's even a great way. It's like when I see folks talking about how they're showing up and they're like, I'm a liberal. I'm like, oh, we're not the same, right? When I see people saying I'm a leftist, I'm like, we share a lot of the same ideologies. In general, I just don't like any of these labels, but I think it's helpful to know where you fall on that spectrum. And I think right now, a lot of people are going to find out, they're going to F around and find out that their people has less to do with their way they racially identify, more to do with their class. And I just mean this in this moment, more to do with their class, because they're going to realize in real time that they don't even racially identify the way that they thought they did. A lot of y'all are out here thinking that you are this blackety black person who reps for black people just because you show up as a black person. And the truth of the matter is you're considering your blackness the same way white people are considering your blackness. The white people that consider your blackness just because you showed up as black is how you are considering your blackness, as if it requires nothing beyond just showing up. And I promise you that your ancestors would say, that is incorrect. That is incorrect. We are here because our blackness was deeper than that. We are still here because our blackness is stronger and it requires more attention. It requires more cultivating. It is more diverse and beautiful than that. So when you think, well, just because we all black, it's all that, that's not the case. And that is bottom line why the expectation for everybody who is black to vote for Kamala Harris was a complete that was just a misguided strategy that actually is replicatory of the oppressor in more ways than people want to admit. You wanted everybody to operate the same way the oppressor wants their people to operate, which is in blind following without making any demands. And it is absolutely absurd that you wanted everybody to do that, and you wanted it to happen just because this woman was Black and just because that man is terrible. And the fact of the matter is, as militants, as radicals, we should never be following anybody blindly. Period. Period. And this suggestion that just because you should is nonsense. And you're going to F around and find out how that hinders you. And hopefully you will adjust. You will adjust. Because it actually is much bigger than just your little clique. And it's getting out of that mindset that's going to actually save you. PSA. Well, that was a deep show, y'all. Woo, child. That was a deep show. Lord, we got some knowledge today. And Earth Boy said it plainly. Guide dogs are the only ones who should let us guide blindly. That's it. That's it. Okay? That's it. And you know what? Just for the record, Talia is right. People are using the term liberal as an identifier without understanding what it is. Look up the differences. Watch the people who are labeling themselves any label and see what feels right. That's all. That's all. Shout out to everybody who dropped a super in the chat today. Always appreciate the support and the upliftment. Thank you so much. As you all know, I do this show for free. And it does take up time and brain space and energy, but it's all worth it to be able to share with y'all and create community with you all. Remember to tell your friends that we do this Monday through Wednesday, 10 a.m. at Amanda Seals TV. If you ordered pins or bonnets, you should be getting them in the mail next week because I'm going to be spending the next 3 days sending them out. And I hope everybody is centered for the rest of the week, grounded, continue to read. Shout out to my Patreon folks. I will see you all over at the Seal Squad. Y'all know what time it is. You're 60. It's not 60. It's time for your 30 seconds of stillness. 30 seconds of stillness. Wow. I enjoyed laughing and learning with you. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And tell your friends. Also, listen to the podcast. It's available everywhere pods are casted. Listen ad-free by subscribing to Patreon Amanda Seals. Come on and join the Seal Squad. Views from Amandaland. Live 10 a.m. Eastern Monday through Wednesday with content on Thursday and Friday at YouTube Amanda Seals TV.